Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Urchin and Squid Defense. Man, these early season 9 episodes really are next level nostalgic for me. Like, I can't even describe to y'all the wave of nostalgia that's just hit me right now. And I think this might be something that lasts all season, just thinking of my memories of this era. Well, at least now I have something to fall back on when I can't think of anything else to talk about during these introductory portions of the review. Anywho, I guess that's my cue to say, as always, thank you all for watching the video today. Every single viewer is appreciated, and now let's just get right into it. Eek and Urchin is an episode, that's for sure, and that makes it sound like I'm about to hate this episode, but that's not what I mean at all. Instead, what I mean is that this episode just doesn't inspire a lot of commentary out of me. It's not a bad episode, and it's not like a boring episode either. It just never really made a huge impression on me, even if I can remember every bit of it. I don't know. I kind of wish this episode had been made closer to now, if only so I could see what it would have looked like with the show's new tendency towards almost exceedingly expressive animation. I suppose we already have our answer to what that would be like though, and that's Ink Lemonade. Alright, well, anyway, let me actually jump into the episode now. So we start with one of my favorite little things, which is SpongeBob being a bit of a weirdo at work. I love how he completely abandons the Krabby Patty he was making to clean up the ketchup he spilled, and I find his dopey little expression when he's all like cleaning time to be both absolutely hysterical and adorable at the same time. And since SpongeBob abandoned making that patty, I just have to wonder what the customer he was making it for felt about literally never getting their sandwich. One thing that stands out to me about Eek and Urchin is its simplicity, or more specifically, its simplicity in setting up the plot here. Like, everything that's happening is so banal. SpongeBob spills some ketchup and has to clean it, and then his cleaning spray rolls under the grill, and that's how he ends up finding the urchin. It's very simple, very low key. I also like how this is the second time we've ever even gone under the grill like this in the show. I don't know, that was just something random I thought about. But anyway, back to the simplicity of this episode for a second, because this episode is also very simple in plot. I mean, once the urchin is discovered, it's just a collection of gags about the cast dealing with this urchin. That's really it. But I think the episode does a good job at breaking out of this early season 9 funk and using the potential for humor here to its fullest extent. Like, this episode has so many great gags. So many. Like the bit near the beginning of the episode where Squidward's like, nothing ever happens here, and then SpongeBob's immediately screaming about the urchin. That was great. Or the bit where SpongeBob, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs all realize that the grill that they're standing on is still on. That was super funny. There's excellent visual gags all over the place, like with everyone freaking out over the urchin. Just the characters' reactions in this episode are animated and boarded quite well, and are, for the most part, really funny. I especially loved the scene with Plankton running from all the urchins. I remember back in undergrad when I was rewatching this episode so I could do the written review for it on the SpongeBob Mania forum. For that part, I literally had to put a hand over my mouth so I wouldn't bust out laughing loud as fuck in the middle of a library. Like, there's so many great gags in this episode, and I'd be here all day if I listed every single one that I found enjoyable. Just know that they pretty much all work for me. Another thing that Eek and Urchin does well are the characters. This aspect is of course enhanced by the fact that the episode is hilarious, but I mean in general, I like the way the cast is portrayed here. Squidward is, as per usual, a standout in this episode, with his lackadaisical attitude leading to some really great moments, such as when he's the last line of defense and he immediately lets the urchin go into the dining room. Mr. Krabs is also great here, and I really enjoyed the part where he destroyed the death robot. SpongeBob is also really funny throughout this whole thing, probably because he's so invigorated, energized. And then there's Plankton, who comes in a little later, and he is hilarious as always. I also really loved the bit with him on the phone with Karen. That was so cute. And I love when their relationship is portrayed positively and not that borderline, or crossing the border, misogynistic bullshit. I don't play that. I guess what I just love most about this episode is that it's basically 11 straight minutes of chaos, and y'all know how much I love me some SpongeBob SquarePants chaos. I also just love episodes where it's clear that every character doesn't have a lick of common sense. It's hilarious. And then I love how at the end of the episode, after all of those trials and tribulations, SpongeBob ends up releasing the urchins right back inside the Krusty Krab. Hilarious ending. Eek and Urchin is simply a hilarious and endlessly entertaining episode, and I've got absolutely no problems with it whatsoever. Every character here just acts like a damn fool, and I adore it. It's silly, ridiculous fun. My kind of episode for sure. And so I'm going to be putting it in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.4 out of 10. Up next, we've got Squid Defense, an episode that asks the much needed question of what if Squidward and Sandy interacted? Ha, just kidding. It really asks the question of what if Squidward learns karate, which you would think would mean significant interactions between Sandy and him, but, well, the episode proceeds to make the same mistake as Karate Star by hardly including Sandy at all. At least this time they did in fact bother to include her in some capacity, so it certainly isn't as insulting as that episode, but damn, I'm annoyed that this is twice now I've been robbed of a Sandy appearance that should have been a shoo-in. And it's a shame, because this episode did start out with a significant advantage with that prospect of a Squidward and Sandy focused episode. I mean, we literally never see this. Squidtastic Voyage is the closest we've gotten to some Squidward and Sandy interactions, and I would not call that a fulfilling interaction by any means. I've heard through the grapevine that a recent episode has Squidward and Sandy interacting in a substantial capacity, but I have no idea what episode that is or how true that is, so I'm just gonna say that my ultimate point, that the writers need to get on making more episodes with this duo ASAP, still stands. And so yeah, Squid Defense is really just a SpongeBob and Squidward episode more than anything, which of course there's nothing wrong with that, but it is quite a bit disappointing when we know that Sandy is the big karate person in the show, and so you would hope that an episode that consists of Squidward learning karate would have her as more of a major player than she truly ends up being during these 11 minutes. As it is, Sandy's role here is very limited, restricted to only giving Squidward the lowdown to karate. She doesn't actually spend time with him in the episode outside of that, and not in any kind of meaningful character way. It's also pretty disappointing since the show has been moving in the direction of shaking up character pairs and trios and all that, but I guess we're not quite at the point where the show is ready to let go of having SpongeBob be the major focus and character that ties all the other characters together. One day. But now that my major qualm with this episode, for the most part, is out of the way, let's talk about the content of the episode itself. Well, first things first, y'all already know I gotta say it, but gorgeous background alert for this establishing shot of the Krusty Krab that begins the episode. It's just so vibrant. I love the reds, pinks, and yellows. The background artists in the show literally never miss. We begin with Squidward just minding his business before quickly being karate chopped in the stomach by SpongeBob, which is, I suppose, foreshadowing in a way, because right after this, Squidward leaves work and goes to get some groceries, and then is seemingly accosted in a dark alley. Squidward immediately runs to SpongeBob's house after this because SpongeBob had offered for Squidward to join him and Sandy in their karate, and so Squidward wants to learn karate so that he can defend himself should a situation like this arise again. And, you know, this premise is at least interesting. It's definitely more interesting than Patrick doing karate, karate star lashings, because it's like Squidville or Bubble Stand or jellyfishing or even Slide Whistle Stooges, in that it's interesting to see Squidward partaking in one of SpongeBob's hobbies. Now, I don't think this episode quite utilized this premise to its fullest potential, but I'm at least glad it was done at all. We get a relatively short scene of SpongeBob training Squidward, but this doesn't really go anywhere and leads directly to SpongeBob telling Squidward that he should learn from Sandy, so in a way this scene kind of feels pointless. I'm sure if the jokes here actually landed, I wouldn't feel this way, but, well, this is where we are right now. And so most of the rest of the episode actually takes place at Sandy's tree dome, with Squidward learning karate from her. But what's almost impressive is how, despite this, the two don't really have a single meaningful interaction. And unfortunately, I don't really enjoy this part of the episode a whole bunch because it's not really funny. It's kind of dull, if I'm being honest. And in the end, it's a big contributor to the pacing issues of this episode because I think we spend far too much time on this. And when Squidward finally does confront his perceived attacker, we learn, predictably, that it was just an innocent dude trying to help Squidward out. And then Squidward ends up getting arrested for assaulting the guy, which was at least deserved. Squid Defense is basically about not making assumptions about the people around you, which it's nice to have an episode that has a clear message like this every once in a while. I suppose there's also the whole no revenge side of this episode too, but I don't think it quite hits all the nails on that particular kind of plot, so I'm just gonna ignore that. But anyway, the reason I bring all of this up is because I think that although Squidward is an asshole in this episode, I think this episode might take things too far even for him, or... Okay, that's not quite my issue. My issue is that this episode makes me think too much of real-world problems, very similar to Sunbleached. Like, I mean, brutalizing a random person because they look like a threat sounds a bit familiar and a bit too close to home, if you catch my drift. Yeah, Squidward gets punished for doing this at the end of the episode, but I wish I didn't have to see that at all. To be clear, there are some small things I like in this episode too. I love that this episode once again shows that Bikini Bottom is a walkable city. I just want to be able to walk home with my groceries and feel good about my life. That sounds like a dream come true. I also love how SpongeBob and Gary are watching a movie together when Squidward starts banging on their door. That's so cute. Gary is also just cute in this, in general in this episode. I love him. I also think that this episode makes some additional improvements upon Karate Star outside of what I'd already mentioned. Like, SpongeBob's smugness about being Squidward's karate teacher is actually pretty funny here, as opposed to irritating in that other episode, and Squidward's training scene is also more entertaining than whatever Karate Star had to offer, but that's not saying much. I also just like to think of this episode as taking place after The Way of the Sponge, because I think that these two episodes fit together nicely. Sandy is also great during her short appearance in this episode, though she really should not have trusted Squidward with any karate knowledge. And maybe this point would have been moot if the episode had spent time actually building a dynamic between Sandy and Squidward, but whatever. Squid Defense was alright, I suppose. It was just kind of a disappointing episode because of what I've already been saying about how the promise of Squidward and Sandy interactions was somewhat reneged upon. I also just did not find this episode funny, really, at all, and it was dull in a lot of places. There were also a significant amount of good here, I can't forget that, and so I think that the best place for this episode to go is in my okay tier, where it comes into a score of 6.8 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. I feel like Squid's Defense is a bit of a disliked episode. I'm not entirely sure about that. I don't think it's really loved, but I also know that especially these days, no one talks about it like ever. So maybe I'm just pulling this from my ass. But I don't really have anything additional to say regarding either of these episodes. I think I said what I needed to say pretty succinctly. I guess one random SpongeBob related thing that I can talk about is that I've been doing a bunch of SpongeBob quizzes on the website sporkle.com. I mean, I've been doing these for years, but I've been doing them a lot more when I have downtime these days. Not really sure why, but they are fun. Oh, also, I think that by the time I record this, and hopefully for sure by the time this review actually comes out, I should have finally finished watching season 14 of this show. It's been very slow going, and I know I need to jump right on watching season 15 right after. But hey, this is a win, because it's literally, like, so hard to watch new things. Alright, well, that's all the even tangentially SpongeBob-related stuff I've got for y'all today, so I'm gonna go ahead and close things out here, and I'll see y'all in the next review.